leadership, brigade leadership, even camp leadership, until they start taking their positions seriously. That goes with recruiting or whatever heritage battles they have in their community, getting involved in the community. Until they start taking this seriously, we're not going to make any headway. That was Carl Jones's big thing, was community cooperation and activity with the local camps. Granted, it's a little more difficult in the big city, like in San Antonio, Dallas, New Orleans, Shreveport, Houston. It's a little more difficult, but you can still have a presence there, in doing things. So until we can get everybody on the same page, and there's not a single answer for that until, like I said, we get people motivated to want to learn or want to do, Well, we after the convention in Dallas, we had 6 or 7 new people on the GEC. So Tom Strain had decided to have a kind of like a retreat workshop for the GEC, so everybody kind of get to know one another, our plans for the next 2 years. And the last day of the retreat, we were sitting in one of the cabins in the circle, and he started at one point, and he wanted everyone to, in for a few minutes, state their goals for the next 2 years. When it come to me as Lieutenant Commander-in-Chief, my primary job is recruiting, retention. My goal was to have all of our membership want to pay their dues, instead of having to just try to pull it out of them like pulling teeth. But in essence, want everybody to be a part of the SCV and pay their dues. That was my goal. We still lose 2,000 to 3,000 members a year. I don't know, but that is some of the things that I'm looking as far as communications. It affects us on every level, and all we can do is work on whatever level we're on. I had to work on the national level. You had to work on the brigade level. Our Army commanders, councilmen have to work on the Army level and do a better job.
And your phone number.
And that's like me. My phone number is in every issue of that Confederate veteran, and it's there for a reason. Now, as far as I know, I'm the only one that writes articles and the Confederate veteran has their address and phone number in there. Like I said, it's in there for a reason. I get a few phone calls. There's sometimes on instant messaging, I've got 2 or 3 conversations going on at the same time. Multitasking. But it comes with the job. But I wanted to make sure that the membership knows that I am approachable. I'm not going to bite someone's head off. I'm not going to, don't bother me. My number's there for anybody to call me with a question or suggestion or recommendation or a complaint.
Thank you.
Anybody else right now? I've got a couple. When we go to Franklin in July, we'll be electing a commander-in-chief and a lieutenant commander-in-chief. We'll also be electing Army officers. Can you tell us anything about the 2 gentlemen that are running for ATM positions that you might know, and how you're going to be able to work with them?
Right now, Darrell Maples is your ATM councilman. If you were here in Kerrville a couple of years ago, you met him. He's running for ATM commander since that position is now open. I've known Darrell for almost 20 years. When I was Louisiana Division Commander, he was Missouri Division Commander. I got to know him then, and during the past 10 years or so. After that, he had 2 daughters growing up that he had to get through high school and get married off, and you know what I'm talking about. Anyway, after that was done, he got involved with the SCV. He served 2 terms as Missouri Division Commander, and after his 2nd term, he ran for councilman and was elected. He has decided to run for ATM Commander, which I am thoroughly happy about. Daryl's a good man. He's an honest man. If you ask him a question, he's going to tell you. Whether you like it or not, he's going to tell you the truth. But I'm really glad that Daryl was run for that position. ATM councilman. Right now, the only one running for it is J.C. Hanna. J.C. is currently the Louisiana Division Commander. He is in my camp in Shreveport. He has, for the past 3 years, won the award for the most new recruits. I think the 3 years combined, he's probably got almost 200 people in the SCV. If any of you were on social media back in April and May about the New Orleans situation, JC stumbled a little bit. He put some stuff out that was taken wrong about what was going on in New Orleans. But besides that that mistake, the way it was worded, not just what he did, but the way it was worded when it got put out. Other than that, JC's done a fine job as division commander, and I believe he'll do a good job as councilman. So if anybody has anything they would like to add to those 2 positions, any questions about them, I'll try to answer them, but that's what I know.
JC's a state trooper and a Marine.
JC's a former Marine and a retired state trooper in Louisiana.
Second question I had is, have you selected or talked to individuals about serving on your staff once you're elected?
I have. Matter of fact, I had it all done and was working to that end when I found out I had an opponent. Now it's okay, if I'm elected, these people are going to serve. But I have, Russ, three that's on the staff, on the GEC, that I plan on keeping. That's Charles Array as Chief of Staff, Doug Nash, my Adjutant-in-Chief. Doug loves being Adjutant-in-Chief. And as long as anybody knows what that job entails, if you got someone who loves doing it, you keep them. If you have to hog time, and keep them. But he loves doing it, and he has already said that he would serve as my Adjutant-in-Chief. And then our Judge Advocate-in-Chief, Scott Hall from Knoxville, Tennessee. I have served in one capacity or the other on 5 administrations. Scott Hall, bar none, is one of the best Judge Advocate-in-Chiefs that we have ever had. And I've served under 5 of them. Bar none, Scott's the best. And he has agreed to stay on and serve as my JAG after July, which I was really glad to hear. Chaplain-in-Chief, how many in here know who Reverend Dr. Herman White is? Many of you, if you've been to a national convention, you know who Herman White is from North Carolina. Herman has agreed to serve as my chaplain-in-chief. I've known Herman since around 2004. Excellent man of God. He's one of those that grew up in the old country style church. Herman's that preacher. And he's going to serve as my chaplain-in-chief. Now, the biggie, I guess you want to call it, is Chief of Heritage Operations. Now, I'm sure everyone in here knows who Donnie Kennedy is. Donnie Kennedy has agreed to serve as my Chief of Heritage Operations. Not only does he bring experience with him as far as his knowledge, but also the fact that he has gone toe to toe with the elite media. Be it politically incorrect show with Bill Maher that he used to do. Donnie was on that show 3 times and gave him what for every time. He's very well versed, as you all know, when it comes to heritage, our heritage. He has agreed to serve as my Chief of Heritage Operations, and for Deputy Chief of Heritage Promotions, Ronnie Kennedy, his brother, is going to serve in that capacity. And Deputy Chief Heritage of Defense. Heritage Defense is going to be Carl Jones, who is the acting Heritage Operation guy now. So I've got as far as I'm concerned, I've got a dynamic Heritage Operations team set up. Mainly because I want to make sure everyone in this organization knows that I mean business when it comes to the heritage. And I'm looking at a few others to serve with them on some things, on some ideas that we have. And one of the things that we're looking at, that Donnie and Ronnie have talked about, is getting 1,000 people in each army to pledge $50 a year to go into a separate fund, an SEV, and that fund will be solely used for heritage offense. That's getting us on different media, putting our narrative out there. We control the narrative wherever it's done. We let people know who we are first without having to react to something some dunderhead has done over here. Now, that's one of the long-range things that I was talking about earlier. It's a long-range plan, and it's not going to happen overnight. It's not all going to happen in my 2 years. Hopefully, the next commander-in-chief will keep it going. That is the idea behind this, is to get it going. But that's one of the things that I've briefly talked to Donnie about, and we are going to sit down in the near future and kind of work out some details on it, but that's one of the things that I'm looking at. That is my 5 people, my 5 appointees on the GEC that I have in mind that have already agreed to serve.
I believe in Shreveport, I heard Kennedy twins talking about this program with Radio Free Dixie. Most of us in here are old enough to know what Radio Free Europe was after World War II. It's a propaganda machine. And that's basically what we're talking about, getting our story out there. My last question has to do with a rumor I heard, and I don't normally like to repeat rumors, but I understand there was an event on Flag Day in Camp Ford, I think, up in North Texas somewhere. And some of the opponents, or some of the supporters of your opponent, were making comments that if you were elected, the Vindicators would rise in power and take over. Have you heard that, or can you comment on it?
I've heard something similar to that. And since you brought this up,
Lord help us.
my secretary is real busy here.
I'm just calling on a higher power.
I have heard that the rumor mills out there that I am, quote, a vindicator, and that if I'm elected, they will take over and what have you. Linda, hold that. How many have got your recent copy of this? Okay. Now, how many of you read my article? The last part of my article talks about Gossip. That is probably one of my pet peeves of all pet peeves is gossip. I've seen how it can ruin people. I've seen how it destroys people, destroys their reputation. And I've been hearing these rumors for quite a while. You've heard those rumors. Other people have heard those rumors. I spoke to a camp in Childress, Texas, a couple of months ago, and just because I was speaking there and it happened to be one or two of the vindicators there, I was tagged as being a vindicator.
John was there.
John was there. My job, first of all, I'm going to tell you a story, and I may repeat this story at the Texas Convention. In 2000, when I was elected Army and Trans-Mississippi Commander, how many here were members of SCV in 2000? Very few. At that time, there was two factions going on in the ATM. You had Pete Olderbeck faction, and you had Charles Smith faction. I never considered myself part of any one of them. But when I was elected ATM commander in 2000, I took over for Ed Deason. Ed Deason was the ATM commander, and I was taking over for him. And he had someone from Oklahoma, David Easterling, that served as his adjutant. And I asked David to continue as my adjutant. Well, David was in a different faction than Charles Smith. After the election, it was in Charleston, South Carolina, and a lot of us was going out to Fort Sumter, and we was on the boat going out there. And we're standing out on the front deck of the boat, and David was standing there, and I said something to Linda about being thirsty. And Dave said, would you like me to go get you a Coke? And jokingly, I said, okay, Dave, that could be your first job as my adjutant to get me a Coke. Charles Smith was standing there when he heard me say that. And when Dave walked off, Charles looked at me, kind of raised his eyebrows. And I knew what he was thinking. And I looked at him, I said, Charles, when I was elected commander of the ATM, I was elected commander of everyone. Same goes as commander-in-chief or lieutenant commander-in-chief. If you're elected in those positions or any position that you got men under you, you're in those positions, you represent all those men. I don't care what you call yourselves. I don't care how you label yourselves. If you're a member in good standing in the Sons of Confederate Veterans, I will represent you just as much as anyone else. And this vindicator crap that's going around is nothing but a bunch of rumors and gossip. And unfortunately, we've got people on both sides of this situation that are suffering from nothing but tunnel vision, and they're obsessed with the other side. Now, I don't know everything that each side has done or hasn't done, but the people I've talked to them and I've listened to them as members. If they got a complaint, I will listen. I may give them advice, but I don't care who you are. If you're a member of this organization, I'm going to represent you just as vehemently as anyone else. I don't care what you call yourself. And I'm sorry that if someone wants to tag me with a negative adjective because they don't like a group of people, I can't do anything about that but tell them you're wrong. Now, I've listened to these people. They have called me time and time again just to vent bend my ear or whatever they do. Because they felt, and I'm not taking this away from anybody in Texas, but they felt like they didn't have anyone else they could talk to. So they would call me, and I would listen. And pretty much, that's about the size of it. So does anyone have a question on that subject? I'll be glad to answer it.
Any other questions, comments, suggestions?
Thank you.
Thank you for coming, Paul. I appreciate it a whole lot. My name is Kevin Canippa. I had an idea. I was wondering what the head office might, I'm not going to say right, would do about maybe trying to reach out to other historical organizations like Sons of Revolution, UDC, different historical organizations, because I think what trouble is all of us that are in historical organizations sometimes don't communicate, and I think they're all attacking us. And it's not going to stop with the Sons. It's going to go to the American Revolution, War of 1812, everything. They're even going to attack World War II vets eventually one day and everything. And I was wondering if maybe y'all have some ideals about maybe you going as representatives to their organizations come talking with y'all. Like UDC here and locally has got their act together, and my wife's a member and stuff, and I go hang out with her, and they're really trying to be proactive to try to save everything they can and work together. And I think that's how they're dividing us, is there's one organization here they're attacking, and the other organizations don't notice it because it's not in their backyard. So I thought maybe I'd throw that out. Thank you.
Well, we do our best working with these other heritage organizations. I can tell you right off the bat, now this doesn't sit well with some of the SEV. I understand it, but if anybody wants to discuss this one-on-one, I will be happy to do so. But we have allies with the SUVCW. And if you don't know what that is, that's the Sons of the Union Veterans of the Civil War. They are one of our biggest allies. And I know there's people that criticize us for having them as an ally. I can't help what they think, but they are. And they have stood up with us, which unfortunately, on the national level, and Linda will agree with me, because she's been a member since 1984, SUVCW stands with us more than the national UDC will. Now, what is wrong with this picture? We can't help that. We've tried, we've reached out to the UDC, but they just, like an ostrich, they put their head in the sand and they won't take it out.
Now, you're talking about national,
National.
not local.
Talking about national.
Okay.
Because locally, I know here, they do a good job, because they're fighting for this monument. Same thing as Freeport. Fighting for that monument. I'm talking national, and there's a few divisions that don't fare much better than national. But it's not Texas and Louisiana. Now,
Can I address that just real quick?
okay,
The problem with the national UDC is, we call them the old guard. Like, I'm not on. Turn me on, Russ.
You better not.
okay.
There we go.
The problem with
I'm here to serve.
The problem with the national UDC, we call it general, we call them the old guard, like the grannies were called in the SCV. But every election for national officers in the UDC is held in the state of Virginia in Richmond. So, yes. So who do you think is going to get elected? Now, there are a lot of us, in order to run for a national office in UDC, you have to have served as the division president. I have been division president, but if I were to run for the general presidency or the national presidency, you think I could win in the state of Virginia? Until we can get enough of us who are like-minded, who want to fight, who want to join with the other organizations, it's not going to happen. We've got to get them there at the conventions to vote. And that's the main thing. And they've got it where it's cost prohibited to go to Richmond to a UDC National Convention. It's absolutely ridiculous. But until enough of us, that I like to call fire eaters, can get together and go and have a platform and vote our slate in who want to fight like our ancestors who started the UDC did, it's not going to happen. And the UDC was invited to the SCV conventions. They would not even respond.
They didn't even respond.
No. And when they had the National SCV convention in Richmond, and a lot of the wives were there, we wanted to go down to headquarters, the UDC headquarters, to tour it. They locked the doors. They closed it while the SCV was in town. So does that tell you about the national organization of the UDC? Now the divisions and the chapters, that's a whole different ball of wax. I'm sorry, Paul.
But Kevin, I agree. I wish we had a better working relationship with some of the other historical societies, organizations. But, and there may be a lot of this, I'm sure, on the local levels throughout. But like I said, the one national organization that I know we've got a good working relationship with is SUVCW.
Anybody else?
We kind of touched on this a little bit earlier, but I just kind of want to re-emphasize. I'm David Calandra. I'm the new commander of the Alamo City Guards. We met before, for anybody else who doesn't know. And but one thing, when I joined in 2015, I mean, I was active right off the bat. I was emailing, asking questions all the time, and now that I'm commander, I got more questions and not a lot of answers. But my point being, when I couldn't get answers from Russ or from someone else locally, I would reach out to National, I'd reach out to Tom, I'd write emails to the newsletter editor if I had questions from the newsletter. I never got a response, not once since 2015, from anybody at national level. And I guess what I'm just trying to say is, as a commander, as someone who's trying to help the organization, it'd be kind of nice if we did have someone where I didn't feel like I wouldn't get any response from somebody from up there. Do you understand what I'm saying?
Yeah. Would you like me to tell you how this is supposed to work?
Yeah.
I said supposed. Now, I'm not throwing stones. I've served in every position in this organization, and I've made my mistakes. I've also learned from those mistakes. The way it's supposed to work in this organization, as far as asking questions, if you don't know about something, camp member asks his camp commander. He asks his brigade commander. Brigade commander asks the division commander or a lieutenant division commander. They ask the Army commander. The Army commander will ask the lieutenant commander in chief or the commander in chief. That's how it's supposed to work. It doesn't always do that. Only one non-answer, it screws up the whole ball of wax. All I can say is we just have to work harder. If we're in a position, we have members under us that we're responsible to, that if you're asked a question, answer it. And if you don't know it, get the answer. I was on my way to Mississippi about a year and a half ago when they was having one of their flag rallies for their state flag, and I was going over there to speak. And I'm rolling down the road at night, headed to Vicksburg to spend the night. Me and Linda on I-20. I get this phone call from this guy in Mississippi. He's just joined like a few weeks ago. And he has asked me about something going on in Mississippi, what he can do, or this, do whatever. And they're talking about the rally and stuff. And that he couldn't go to the rally because he had a class reunion to go to. I said, okay, fine. But when he got off the phone, I talked to him for a while. When he got off the phone, Linda said, what other organization can you be in and you've only been a member for a few weeks, you pick up the phone and you talk to the guy that's second in charge of the organization. I don't know one. Now, like I said, I will pick up the phone and talk. Now, I may let it go to voicemail so you can leave me a message because I get so many crank calls. But if you leave a message, I will call back. Anybody here that knows me knows I will call back, and very soon. But I will call you. I will talk to you. Unfortunately, a lot of the guys on the national level don't. And I can't do anything about that. All I can do is about me. And I've even had Tom and some others say, I don't know. You got your number in there. You're going to get all kinds of crazy calls. I said, that's okay. I'm crazy too. I'll talk to them. But you're right. Sometimes we have problems getting answers from people above us, and that's something that we need to work on from the newest member all the way to the commander-in-chief. That's stuff we need to work on. Now, John, you had a question?
Yes, Paul.
You can answer this real quick. This is in reference to the Sons of Union veterans. I've got enough to qualify almost as many, you know what I'm talking about, of the blues. However, I have received emails stating that should I join that if certain individuals in the Texas division said that if I did that or tried to endorse them, that they hate our flag, that they hate me, that if I do that, then I am not qualified to be a member in the Texas division along with saluting the flag.
I've heard this argument ever since I've been a member of the SCV. Because I guess if I dug deep enough, I could probably find one from New York, but I haven't dug deep enough. That will have to be a personal decision. I am not going to point my finger. I'm not going to point an accusatory finger at anyone. I got some good friends in our camp that belong to both organizations. The present commander-in-chief of the SUBCW is also an SCV member in Virginia. But I know there are people that will say that to you. And I'm not going to say one way or the other because all I can do is what if I would do it or not, and that's me. But I'm not going to put my personal opinion in that of someone else. I think if that's something you believe you can do and should do and want to do, that's your business. But knowing that there are going to be people that's going to criticize you for that, right or not, good